Hello, welcome back. We are on days 4, 5, and 6 of Change Your Brain Every Day by Daniel G. Amen, MD, Amen Clinics. You can look up a lot about, if you want more information about who he is and what he does. But we're kind of following this book to see if it helps change your brain. It's amazing how important our brains are and how little we exercise them or even think about how to exercise it or what's good for our brain. And it does so much. And, it's so subconscious, we don't even think about it. But we'll start with day 4. Go ahead and plug right in. Day 4. Your brain is the most awe-inspiring creation. Human brain has about 100 billion neurons. Each neuron can have up to 10,000 connections to other cells. So there's roughly 100 trillion connections in your brain, all constantly communicating and performing vast amounts of functions. Again, there's so much of it that's subconscious, on autopilot. We don't think about breathing. We don't think about blinking. We don't think about making our blood pump. All of that happens naturally. Your brain needs about 20% of your calories, your caloric, maybe saying that wrong, intake, 20% of blood flow in your body to supply itself with constant flow of vital nutrients and oxygen. It's critical to remember that anything that deprives your brain of oxygen can cause damage. I think later on in the book, he has other suggestions of things that hurt your brain, things we may ingest or environmental things. Again, I'm guiding with him. I am not a doctor. I'm going off of what he says. Always look up any of these things on your own if you want to be sure medically what it says, or talk to your doctor. Your brain is very special, makes you who you are, so it's critical to care for it as the most precious part of you. Again, we don't really think about taking care of our brains. It's so integrated into who we are that we just don't think about it as a separate thing. When you go to exercise, you can kind of see the muscles work and things, and it's hard to kind of understand how the brain works, and you can't really see it, even though it's in everything we do. It's kind of one of those weird things. The prompt for day 4 is to think of 3 world-changing accomplishments done by someone's brain. And I think the possibilities for this are endless. Naming 3, maybe limiting, to think about some of the things that have been created because somebody thought of it, somebody thought it up, somebody worked out how it works. My brain kind of went to the H-bomb first, which is kind of weird, but to think that somebody came up with that, the calculations and things for how to do that is kind of, crazy. Anything with computers, to think that somebody figured out how the different numbers and things worked to create programs is just kind of baffling. Moving on to day 5, brain envy is the first step. Weird to have advice about being envious. Normally we're told that's a bad thing. Brain health comes down to 3 things. Brain envy is the big one that he talks about. You must care about your brain. 2, avoid anything that hurts it. 3, engage in regular brain healthy habits. And again, we'll talk more about this in the next coming days. I've looked forward to the next several days. I know 7, 8, and 9, I think, talks about things that hurt your brain and health and things. Looking at your brain versus somebody else's brain. Thinking about, how the brains are different. The example in the book was there was somebody that did have one of the scans, and also there was a scan of his mother's brain. And even though obviously the mother was older, her brain almost looked healthier than his. So what was she doing that was different than his? And that created what he calls brain envy. And how do I make my brain look better? How do I make it healthier? Because I'm envious that this brain looks better. So it's about learning to kind of love life and to start loving your brain and how to take care of it and how that kind of affects the rest of your health. And then when it comes down to parenting, how we change our brain is going to affect how we interact in our relationships. And again, that's with adults and children. That's both. And as we change, then that's going to help model and mold their brains as they are developing their brains, and that will help them in adulthood. At least that's the goal. The prompt for day 5 is write a love letter to your brain. It can be long or short. If you were creative, you want to write a poem, whatever you want to do. My suggestion too is that if you're one of those people that kind of focuses more on the negative, write the negative letter first. Get that kind of out of your system of what you don't like about your brain, and then step back and say, okay, I don't like this. I can change this. But what does my brain do for me, despite the fact that I don't like feeling this, despite the fact that I suffer from anxiety, depression, insomnia, any of those things? But then go back and say, but my brain keeps me alive. Like my brain helps me think. My brain helps me read, helps me do all these other things. If you need to get the negative out of the way to focus on the positive, then I suggest do that, so that you can kind of compare the two and step back and have a whole picture. Again, that's my own little tidbit, not in the book, but I'm adding my own ad libs. So we're going to finish with day 6. It's actually titled Doug falls in love with his brain. Doug was a patient. He came in complaining of brain fog and fatigue. He had lived, I guess, in homes that had mold in it. He grew up on a farm, so he was exposed to pesticides. And then he had injuries from training in martial arts. So going through the scan and talking to Dr. Amen and going through the clinic, the regimen of improving the brain, improving the diet, other supplements, nutrition, adding in hyperbaric oxygen therapy just to increase the oxygen that went to the brain. Supposedly he felt better in a week, and in 3 months his brain scan had improved. The brain fog had lifted, the energy was better, the endurance was better, mood, memory, all those things were better. And his point is, once you fall in love with your brain, once you start putting your brain first and thinking about how to take care of it, your brain can get better. Neuroplasticity, we know that just from being able to change how the neurons, you can make new pathways, reading several of the books to go over this later, so we can change it. And with his clinics and what he has been studying over the last several decades is that through the scans, he can see how it changes based on how you kind of start reprogramming your brain, doing other things to take care of your brain, just like you would your body. It's one of those things, again, like I said, it's one of the most important organs, and yet we kind of don't think about it. Because again, everything's so autopilot, everything's already so much in the subconscious that we don't stop to think about how to work our brains or what to do and how we take care of them. It's easier to see potentially how you're hurting other parts of your body, especially with your muscles if you're working out or if you're gaining weight. Like, it's easier to see some of that. It's harder to see what your brain is doing, or even, to fully understand that the brain may be part of what's going on with you. Because it's just hard to see. And I think even medically, most of the time, doing an MRI are not showing some of these other things. So it's trying to kind of remember, these several prompts are kind of remembering your brain is important. It does do lots of things, and to kind of put it first. And if you see somebody you're envious of, use that more as a motivation to help change your brain, that brain envy that he talks about. The day 6 prompt is meditate on this question. So however you choose to meditate, if you need to be quiet, if you need to just read it over and over again. Do you love your brain like you love important people in your life? And if that's true, then how does that work? And if not, why is that? And again, I think part of it, it's really easy to take it for granted. And honestly, it's just as easy to take important people in your life for granted. Right? You're so accustomed to them being there, and it's just part of your daily life that you don't stop and think about it. So I think this prompt can kind of do dual purposes for you if you want to stop and first kind of name the important people in your life, and even take a minute to see if you're taking them for granted, in how that feels. And then say, I'm doing the same thing to my brain. How do I help fix some of these things by taking care of my brain? Again, I am we're going over a book written by a doctor. Any questions you have, please talk to your own doctor, your own therapist, your own psychiatrist, any of those things that are in your life, to help focus or, use this for you. I am not a doctor. I have found this very interesting because I know how the brain affects everything, and I know, brain development in children is going to affect the adulthood, and then some of us as adults are trying to kind of reprogram what our childhood brains did. So I think this is a great way to do all this together. But if you ever have any questions in regards to, as we move on, any of the herbs or supplements he suggests, these are suggestions. Please talk to your doctor before you do any of these things. But a lot of this is reflection and talk. But I do know later on in the book he will talk more about supplements and other things that he recommends. Always talk to your doctor first. Massive disclaimer. I need to make sure I put it in the description too, But that's day 4, 5, and 6. So we're almost a week through. I know the next several days are going to talk about diet and nutrients and things to help with the brain. So that will be the next round that we talk about. Please, if you're going through this, if you want to post anonymously, if you want to post about some of the questions that you've answered or things that have kind of popped in your mind, comment below. I'd love to start a conversation about this as we go through. We still have several more prompts to go through. And then I'm going to try to start posting some other videos from some other books that I'm reading about the brain and how the childhood brain affects and shapes our adulthood brain. And that's also for your own inner healing to use, as well as keeping in perspective of what we're trying to teach our children, and what we're trying to do to help make sure that their childhood, that brain helps shape their adulthood in a slightly different way than maybe our brains were. So it's all full circle. It all connects. It's kind of crazy to me. All these self-help books all go back to childhood brains and trying to redo some of these pathways that we may have learned. So taking some of this account as we shape ours, hopefully we're also helping shape our children. So again, it all interconnects. We have to take care of ourselves to be able to parent, and hopefully then we're able to shape our children's brains, and maybe they won't need these self-help books. So anyway, I will see you guys next week. Doing for sure the next 3 prompts, 7, 8, and 9, and then we'll see if the next ones I will do 3 or 4. It just kind of depends. I try to put the prompts that kind of connect together. But I will see you guys next week, and I hope to hear how some of this is going for you guys. See you later.